Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. We are back with the videos. Sorry we missed last week, but this week we are making some beaded face frames. Let's get into it. All right, so this project is obviously an inset face frame project, and so this is a beaded inset project. So what that means is we have our face frame stock, our doors sit inside the frame nice and flush, and this is beaded. So on the inside edge of all our face frames, we have this beaded detail here. And there's multiple ways to achieve this look. The way we are doing it is we're taking our face frame stock and we're putting the bead on right on our face frame stock, and then we're going to jack miter all these parts together. So basically the jack miter is where our stiles and rails come together. We can't have them come together like this, so we need to miter just the bead and remove that material there, and then we put a little miter on the end of this bead, and then everything comes together and looks really clean. We're going to be cutting all our jack miters on the sliding table saw. Multiple ways to cut jack miters. There's router bits. You can do it on a router table. I used to do this on my regular table saw with a miter gauge. And then there's another method that is completely different than doing it this way and jack mitering everything. You could mill your square face frame stock and then put your frame together and then mill up beaded, and then mill up that bead detail on the router table and rip it so you just have the bead, and then you can miter it in and pin nail it to the inside edge of your face frame. A lot of people do it that way, and that's another good method. So there's multiple ways. Which way's faster? I mean, I don't know. I feel like my way, I don't think it's necessarily faster. This way takes a little bit more time up front as far as cutting all the jack miters, but then when you get to assembly, everything assembles really quick because everything just lines up and slides into the, like, all the miters line up and it goes together really easy. Doing it the other way, you can probably get your face frame material milled and put together faster, and then at the end, then you have to go back and miter in all that bead and pin nail it in. Which way is faster? Like I said, I don't know. I'm not trying to see what is the fastest method. I'm just going to show you the way I've been doing it for years. And honestly, it's actually been a while since we've gotten a beaded inset job. So it's been a while since I've actually done this. But it works really good. This is how I was taught at a shop I used to work at years ago. So anyways, let's get into it. I'll show you how I do this and get some pretty good results.
All right, so the first thing that I did was get the router table out of the corner and get it started setting up. I needed to take the Milwaukee router that I had in there out because it only takes a 1/2 inch collet, or I only have a 1/2 inch collet for it, and swap it out with the Porter cable router because the bead bit that I'm going to be using has a 1/4 inch shank. So we swapped it out and then put this thing off to the side, and we'll finish setting it up later. And then I could keep going on milling up face frames. So I already took some of my rough poplar and ripped it up, and then I just hit like a light pass on the joiner just to help take any twist out of the board, and then I square up the edge. That cord right there that drives me nuts is for the small dust collector that we have over next to the table saw, the regular cabinet saw. I don't have that tied into the big dust collector just because I didn't want to have to put another Y off of the sliding table saw to tie into that. So we need to get an outlet over there basically so we can have the small dust collector hooked up for that cabinet saw. And that's why that cord is there. Trust me, it drives me crazy too. All right, so we finished up milling our face frame material down to thickness and to width. We do have a few different widths for top and bottom rails and center stiles and lock rails and stuff. And everything gets the bead on it, and some of the lock rail and center stile material gets the bead on both sides. and then we get finish getting this router table set up. So I'm using my stick ruler. It is amazing for setting up your machines and tooling and stuff like that. It is really great for that. So all this stuff, I have that in my Amazon store. The link is below. And in there you'll find just a bunch of stuff that I use around the shop, different tools and stuff like that. My little tool pouch that I wear that I've gotten a ton of questions about. It's all in the Amazon store. Link is down in the description. All right, so we got this set up. So there's the bead, and you can see it's a little bit below the surface, and that is on purpose. I want it like that, so then after we get our face frames assembled later, we can go in with the orbital sander and sand everything and not have to worry about hitting that bead and flattening out the top of it. So I run all my stock through and get the bead on all my parts, and then I'll take my parts over and cut them down to size. And so we go ahead and break all our parts down, label everything. I try and keep all the parts together for each frame. And I always start with my long pieces first. I pick through the stock and pick like the best pieces for all my longer stuff. And then I continue down into the shorter and shorter pieces. So everything gets labeled on the face with pencil. Obviously it'll get sanded away after the frames are assembled. And the crosscut fence on the slider is perfect for the clipboard, for my cut list. And that saw is amazing. We are really, really loving this saw. So here we go. I've got the saw put on a 45 and a scrap piece that I'm setting up to start cutting my jack miters. So I want that blade only high enough to come through the top of the bead. And I'll take my parts for each cabinet and lay it out on the floor, because it's very easy to get confused when cutting this stuff, especially when you have lock rails and lefts and right pieces and center stiles. And it's easiest, just for me at least, to lay it all out on the floor so I can see it and I don't get confused and I know what I'm cutting. And so I took my top rail and butted in there and made a mark and then measured to it. And then I am going back to my plans and referencing all my numbers and making sure that everything is accurate, because especially on this job, first of all, the boxes are already built, so they need to fit on the box, and the doors are already ordered. We did order doors for this job, and I need to make sure my frames are accurate so that the doors will fit properly. And that right there is where a lock rail is gonna meet into that, and I will show you guys how to remove the rest of that material. I just do a bunch of passes with the slider and hog out most of that material, and then the little bit that is left we will clean up with a chisel right before we assemble. And so, like I mentioned, there you go. There's the little bit of material that's left that we'll just clean up with the chisel. But like I mentioned, we did order the doors on this job, and mostly because we are super busy right now and we just don't really have the time. And second reason is they're all raised panel, and for the paint grade ones it's no problem because they're just MDF panels. And then there's a bunch of stain grade stuff for this project as well, and it's just so much work to do stain grade raised panels, especially the amount of them that are in this job to glue up the panels. And we just don't really have the time right now, so we ordered the doors and they should be in this week. And so I'm pretty excited about that, to see how they are. I know a lot of other shops around here use this company, so pretty stoked for those to show up and see what they're looking like. And so I just keep plugging away. This cabinet had couple different length center styles and lock rails, and yeah, there was just a lot of cuts for that specific frame. So then I take my parts after I cut everything and go over to the regular saw. I raise the blade all the way up, and this is where I'm removing the material and the styles where the top and bottom rail will come into it. And so you can get a better angle here, but you see I made a black, I took a Sharpie and made a line there, and that is right where the saw blade is above the table. So that way when I make this cut, I don't go in too far and cut into the bead. So there will be a little bit of material to remove, which we'll clean up with the chisel afterwards. I just break that piece off and then clean out the corner with the chisel. And so here you can kind of start to see that process. Just a couple cuts with a nice sharp chisel, and then things are ready to just assemble. So all the hard work at this point is basically done at figuring out the math and laying everything out. And assembly is very easy. Clean out that last little bit. And then we can take our parts over and start putting some pocket holes in them. So while I'm doing this, Rowdy is working on some floating shelves, and they're L-shaped, like they turn the corner, and there's lighting that needs to get routed into them, and also some plug mold for outlets that needs to go in there, and it needs to turn the corner as well. So he's been working on that and routing the corners and everything and getting these pieces all nice so we can install those this week. Just make sure I clean any glue, especially out of that bead in the front, because once it dries, you don't want to be getting in there with a chisel and damaging that bead or anything. But in some other big shop news, we also have a new guy who you guys probably saw in the background before, cutting plywood, and he is working out really, really good. He just finished his second week with us, and I've known him, there he is in the background. I've known him for a few years, actually. We used to go to the same church, and he's a really cool dude. He used to work in a cabinet shop with his dad, so he does have some experience, and he's been killing it. The last 2 weeks, he has, he's doing really well. So it's nice, really nice to have him, and we definitely need the help right now because the work just keeps coming. So all right, and then we've almost got our first frame done, and you can see how easy these things go together once all those jack miters are cut. Notice that new Laguna banner up in the background? Yep, let's go. Really happy with the Laguna stuff. Just checking to make sure everything is nice and square. And it is, which is always a good thing. The doors I ordered should fit in here just right. So then we just keep repeating the process. All of our stuff is already cut. So as we go, we just chisel what we need to chisel away, put some pocket hole screws, and put them together. And obviously all the ones that you guys are seeing here are all the poplar ones. We have all the alder ones as well. And the alder is getting like a dark stain, and it's actually going to be this like distressed finish. It's clear alder, so no knots or anything, but it does get, we're actually going to be like beating this stuff up a little bit with some chains and whatnot, just to make it look a little bit old and rustic and that should be interesting. We are matching existing stuff in this client's house, so that's kind of what we're going to be doing. And same thing with the paint grade stuff as well. It will be distressed a little bit. It's going to be white, but this week will be another extremely busy week. I'll be kind of bouncing around again, and the guys will be fitting all these face frames to cabinets, and the doors should be in at some point, and then they could start hanging doors and making sure everything is good and prepping for finish. And then honestly, the week after that will probably be all hands on deck just to get the finishing done. And with 3 of us, we should be able to knock it out pretty quick. And Rowdy's wearing a mask only because of the MDF dust, because he was routing those shelves and it was making quite a mess. And here you can just kind of see the assembly of one of the trickier frames I had. Not really tricky, just had a lot of cuts in this one with the lock rails and center stiles. And there you go. Everything came out really nice. These have not been sanded yet. They still need to be sanded, but you can see nice clean bead. Joints are looking good, and I'm stoked with how they turned out.
All right, guys, that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something. Maybe you learned what you don't want to do. I don't know. Either way, thanks for watching. I appreciate it as always. And this is something that we do not do often. I don't get a lot of beaded face frame jobs coming through the shop. Honestly, it's been a couple years since we've done a beaded inset job. So yeah, so I just went back to the method that I was taught. And it works good. It works good. But like I said, multiple ways to do this. Anyways, thank you for watching. Next video will be like a shop tour update video. I know we've got to finish talking about dust collection. I know that's been a big topic that a lot of you guys have wanted to see updates on. So we will be updating you on that. It is working amazing. The Laguna T Flux 5 dust collector is awesome. Very, very pleased with it so far. Also very pleased with this machine as well. Awesome, awesome tools. So yeah, pretty stoked. I also have shirts coming. They are on order, so they should be in and up available within the next couple weeks. And they're really high quality shirts, really cool design on them. I am super stoked about it. So as soon as they are available, I will be letting you guys know because I think they're pretty sick. Other than that, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. The Patreon link is below. My website's below. And that's it. That's all I got for you guys. Peace.